It's the third day in the second month of 2025, and Perspectives takes the air on Capital FM at this time every Monday. Please join me celebrate my guest, Mr. Sheun Ibokun Oni, a social labor activist, and Honorable Osina Chimbano, a public affairs analyst. Gentlemen, we celebrate you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Thank you for. Good morning.
You're most welcome to Perspectives, a weekly program that highlights trending issues in the country as they unfold and gives you, the listener and my guest, the platform to share your viewpoint on the issue raised towards a better understanding of the issue. My name is Bukky Towuru, your host. It's 18 minutes past 11. Let's get down to business. The Nigeria Labour Congress (NLC) has directed its branches and affiliates to mobilize members for a nationwide protest to demand reversal of the 50% increase in telecommunications tariffs by the Nigerian Communications Commission (NCC). This is sequel to the NCC's approval January 2025 for telecommunication companies, telcos, to commence the full introduction of new tariffs, and this, the telco says, will take effect in March 2025. Benga Debayo, Chairman, Association of Licensed Telecommunications Operators of Nigeria, Alton, has said the telecom sector cannot be the subsidy for other sectors. So the telcos will issue their tariffs differently. So it's not a joint thing. Each telcos will issue their tariffs again differently, and are presently filing, reviewing, and obtaining approvals from the regulator following what is called the regulatory requirement, regulatory steps of filing, review, and obtaining approvals. From his point of view, it's important the telecom sector has come to a point where what has to be done for the sector to survive. Despite this, the NLC said should the government and NCC fail to heed the cry of the workers, it will escalate actions, including the possibility of a nationwide boycott of telecommunication services and further mass actions. And this may involve nationwide withdrawal of service to resist policies that is worsen, aggravate, or compound poverty and inequality. That's the meaning of that big grammar. Well, let's find out from my guest in the studio. The NLC has called on the federal government, the Nigeria Communications Commission, NCC, and the National Assembly to engage in meaningful dialogue with critical stakeholders to review the proposed tariff adjustment within the context of the economic realities facing Nigerians, thinking the increase is exploitative. How do we start, Mr.
All right, thank you so much. I believe the NLC have taken a step in the right direction, because before they resorted to, going on protest, they have actually tried to dialogue. They have tried to engage the stakeholders. In this case, particularly the NCC, which is the regulatory body representing the interest of the government, then the telecom companies as well. We know for a fact that this 50% tariff hike is as a result of the economic realities. Number one, floating of naira. Number two, removal of subsidy. Now, there is inflation. Of course, there is the prices of essential commodities like food, electricity, transportation, and everything has gone up. So the telecom companies are now coming with a case. They are coming with an argument that is also good, that they also, considering the current reality, should increase their own tariffs so that they can survive. That's the language. They say so that they can survive. Now, that makes me to now want to ask, just like NLC is asking, should Nigerians always be at the receiving end when an economic policy has been made? I think the right thing to have NCC should have done Instead of just discussing with the telecom companies and reaching an agreement that they can raise their tariffs up to 50%, what they should have done was to look at this matter technically. Are there other ways we can help so that these telecom companies can spend less in their operational cost? They can, because the major case they have is the cost of running their base stations, because most of them till now they are still running their base stations on diesel. Now, this is 21st century. Many countries of the world they're talking about renewable energy. We've been talking about that. The other time I was here, we were talking about CNG. Now, renewable energy in telecommunication is the in thing. Many telecom companies all around the globe, they are now using solar to power their base stations.
And that solar would be free?
No, it's not as if it's free, but at least you won't be spending on diesel every day, because right now they run diesel every day to power their base station. It's quite expensive.
So we can say it's not going to be as expensive
It will definitely,
not that it will not add to the cost of doing the business.
Emma, they have been making profit since 2001. MTN particularly, because they came first. Before government now gave license to other companies, Glo being an indigenous company and Airtel, other companies to come in. Now, competition made them to reduce their prices. It's natural in economics. But before then, remember there was a time MTN in 2001 used to sell SIM card at 30-something thousand, 20-something thousand. A call per minute as at that time was 15 naira. One SMS as at that time was 15 naira. So they have been profiteering before now. They have been making profit from that time till now. Calculate it. I've gone to check their revenue from 2019. It was by 2019 they hit 1 trillion. Now from that time, 2020, 2021, 2022, they have gone from 1 trillion now to 2 trillion in revenue.
And they haven't really expanded the business.
Because the population of Nigerians are increasing in population, the number of telecom users are increasing, businesses are increasing. So many people are subscribing to their products, so they are making more money.
Okay, let's hear from Mr. Ibukun. Your point of view from what the NLC is saying, that this is exploitative.
Thank you so much. And I think the best way to describe the position of the situation we find ourselves is assuming that those in the telecom industry are actually running a social service. And that will not be fair. These are business people who had invested very heavily. I'm glad my colleague on the panel rightly pointed out the fact that several years ago, the investors came in, and what they had actually come to do when they came in, we knew how a number of people came in and the space was not favorable and they had to shut down their operations. But some, despite the very tough business climate we have in the country, had actually continued to invest, expand their network. Of course, we know the big names, the big players in the industry. Those who don't have a nationwide coverage, we know how difficult the business terrain has been for them. And it is trying to also say that what the NSC had resolved to do is more like killing an ant with an AK-47. The situation on ground is more that should require a measure of circumspect as a nation. And the NLC, being the umbrella body for the labor organizations in the country, have a duty to ensure that any company who employs 1 or 2 Nigerians should be protected. If you have heard from the major players in this industry, it's gotten to a point, for instance, the MTN, the biggest player, is on record that currently it runs its operation, its revenue, about 160% of its earning goes into running operations. Like you rightly said, a number of years back, they made profit. But are we going to say because they made profit years back, they should now start running at a loss and start shutting down their base stations? and start cutting down their operations. We have been complaining about inefficiency of a number of these networks. We'll begin to see worse services. That's what we are calling for. Let me also put on record that Nigeria, as it is today, in the whole of West Africa, actually charges the least when it comes to gigabyte of data. For instance, in the United States, on the average, it's about $6. South Africa is about $3.7. In Nigeria, it's less than $1. In fact, to put it in the right figure, it's about $3.8. If you convert it using maybe 1,500 per dollars, it's still 1,650. You are still talking about less than 700. In the UK, it's about 9,000 if you compare what they're doing. So they are charging the least in West Africa. And so when you're bringing the idea of they have made a lot of profit, and nobody comes into business not to make profit. They want to make profit. But the business climate, everyone agrees that currently, due to some of the facts that he has rightly stated, the FS policy, the subsidy regime we found ourselves, and of course, their base stations are powered by fuel. And we know what the price of petrol, for instance, and diesel, how it's been in the past few months in the country. So they need to expand. If the NLC continues on this path is going, I'm going to tell you what that will mean for our country. First, we are going to have a disruption of services across the country. And
already is happening.
It's happening already.
And it's
I'm
bad.
about to say that it's getting bad now. It's going to get even worse because we are also going to have people lose their jobs. That's what we're going to have. And the NSC simply will have their ranks depleted because some of their members will be unemployed. All right. What that will also mean is that as a nation, the tax that we are getting from this telecom coil, we will not get it again. So we have so much to lose than to gain on this part we are doing.
Okay, let me shock you. In the meantime, Oluveje, special advisor to the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on energy, was reported to have said this at the Africa Head of State Energy Summit in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. It says that 30 African heads of state and governments committed to concrete reforms and actions to expand access to reliable, affordable, and sustainable electricity to power economic growth, improve quality of life, and drive job creation across the continent. I'm referring to this because a lot of people still believe that Nigerians are suffering because the president's action on the first day in office, subsidy, is gone. A lot of people are still thinking that is why the country is presently going through all these turmoils, forgetting that it is not only Nigeria that is in this. How do you respond?
Sincerely, when people compare Nigeria to other countries, like my colleague was comparing Nigeria's tariff to other countries' tariff and all of that, it's unfair. Our minimum wage and that of other countries, is it the same? What is the condition in the UK? The people working in UK, have you checked their economy? Have you checked the way they are living there? Their means of livelihood there, they can afford it. People here, we cannot afford it. This situation is more like a child that does not have blood and is unconscious. And a medical doctor is suggesting that they should collect more blood from the child as a way of healing the child. It's not going to work. The child will die. The economy is dying. And the economic policy this government knows on how to revive the dying economy is by widening the tax net. When you are talking, because this is part of the reason why the telecom companies are complaining that they can't survive, because now they will start paying more in tax based on the current tax bill that is being discussed. Now that they will pay more in tax, they are now saying, okay, we have to increase our tariff. At the end of the day, who bears the brunt? The people. Because those who can afford it.
It's not about the tax that this tariff is being increased. You already highlighted the reasons.
It's just one of the reasons.
Not to talk of cost of the equipment that they use. Because I want us to bring this to
perspective. Government taxes them to bring in those equipment. They can give them tax holidays. Government can give them some concessions Government, in a situation where you see the people are already overburdened, okay, had it been the prices of food are affordable because government invested into agriculture massively, people might not bother. They may say, okay, if we are paying more for electricity, for telecom and transportation, we can manage because at least we are buying food cheap. But in a situation where all the basic commodities people need on daily basis to survive, they are all high. People are complaining that the burden is so much on them. What government needs to do is to come up with modalities on how to help out. Government can call these telecom companies and give them subsidy on how to supply. If they insist they must use diesel to power their base stations, government can work it out on how they can be getting it cheaper. Now, government can as well tell them to, okay, pay less tax. It happens, even in Ghana, in some other countries where MTN and all these telecom companies are existing. So there are situations whereby instead of putting the burden on the people, government can weigh in and say, okay, can we do it like this? Can you pay less tax so that the burden will not be on the people? And government needs to invest into critical sectors of the economy, particularly agriculture. If people are able to, have a way they can have a succor from one part of the economy or the other, we may not bother that we are paying more on telecom. Now, the issue is this. Are these companies really running at a loss? The answer is no. The books are there. Go and check. They are making over 2 trillion right now as I'm talking to you. So it's not about not making profit. It's about they are not making up to their target. They have a target. They want to target 3 trillion. They want to make more profits. Nigeria is like a cow. Everybody just come and cut meat anyhow you like. It's not good.
So the cost of fuel they're talking about, cost of doing business in the country, actually does not hold water in your own perspective for them to.
It's an issue, but there is no. The only solution government knows is put the burden on the people. Every time the people will bear the brunt. How much is our salary? Somebody going home with 70,000 is paying more on house rent, paying more on food, paying more on electricity, paying more on telecom, paying more on everything. So now, what is government also doing to share in this burden? What is it, even the telecom companies themselves, what is their corporate social responsibility to the people? You have been making money when the economy was good. Nigeria was the best economy in Africa at the time. And now, because we are having economic problem, part of their corporate social responsibilities is that they should look for ways to reduce the cost of running their base stations. Because now, MTN wants to embark on a project where they will be giving electricity to homes through solar. You pay as you go. As you use, you'll be paying. That is an idea, it's an innovation. Can they apply it in their base stations? When they use solar, at least the cost of running those base stations will reduce. It's a way of also making concession. I'm not even saying that people should not pay anything extra, but at 50% is too much. It's just too much. Just imagine.
Okay, Mr. Ibukun, talking from his point of view, what's your take on it?
Honestly, I think I can see the emotion my colleague is putting into adducing his point. But business decisions are usually not made based on emotion. They are usually made based on logic. And I'm glad he agreed that there is a necessity to actually increase the tariff. Maybe not 50%, because I heard him say that. To be candid, I asked this question when I read about the Nigerian Labour Congress embarking on a strike. I think tomorrow, if I'm correct.
No, it's a
protest.
From tomorrow. I asked myself, the Nigerian Union of Road Transport Workers are members of the Nigerian Labour Congress. When the subsidy is gone statement was made, the following day, they jack up the cost of transportation. NLC did not say, no, reduce it, because the burden will go on Nigerians. They are their members. There is another affiliate of theirs that is in the electricity. They make noise initially, they allow that fly. And we must be very careful we don't fall.
And there's still going to be another increase.
Increase that is coming very soon. So I want us to be very cautious what Chimamanda Adichie calls the danger of a single narrative. That we are not in a corner and we are assuming that because these people have made a profit, this is the time they are also supposed to show some sense of patriotism. We are just looking at a single narrative. I did say it here. There was never a time that they denied ever making profit before now. But as it is now, their books in the past 6 months, they discovered they are spending more than they are making. That's the reality today. And if we don't address that, we have a bigger challenge. Because what we are going to do, like they said, they will picket them. They told Nigerians not to patronize some of them and things like that. I followed the trend on Twitter, for instance, when NSC made that statement. And many Nigerians that they actually said they are fighting for dismissed it, that can really not work. All right, we should not patronize, use data, what are we going to
What's
use?
the alternative?
It is almost the oxygen now in the country. Someone asked and said, I'm just wondering what will happen if I drop my phone for 24 hours. And I started laughing. A few of us who are a bit older, there was a period when we don't use phone at all and we survived. All right, but that's the reality today. That's the reality today, and we must not shy away from that. So what I think the NLC should do is to ensure that they are part of the negotiation, that we ensure that these people don't put a band, because what actually made them to survive this number of years, like I told you, they charge the least in the subcontinent. Across West Africa, Nigeria charges the least. And I was actually not doing a comparison between Nigeria and the US. I'm doing between Nigeria and Ghana, who has worse economy than we currently are going through.
You mentioned UK too.
Yeah, I did mention US, but I also brought it, situated to people who have the same. If you want to look at our purchasing power parity, Ghana, Benin Republic, Niger, Togo, they are charging more than we are doing when it comes to data. Why was that possible? Was that during the initial negotiation, the last time there was an increment was around 2003. That's 2013. That's 11 years
back.
That's 11 years back. So there was a band that allowed them to gradually ramp up, but they have gotten to the what you call the ceiling of that legal band. So what they are talking about now is that let's sit down and let's widen the band again. The band can say you can increase maybe between 50%, 5% to 50%. So it's NSC that needs to come in and say, no, let's do 50%, maybe 25%. That's how to negotiate. You don't always go every rational, logical conversation. You say, no, protest, we boycott. That should be the last resort. You shouldn't start with that. It's not a protesting. Ensure that you have your own, data-driven argument in the round table where that conversation is being held. But to tell business people who are already running at a loss not to think about increasing, you are simply telling them to back up. And in the 21st century, if they start shutting down their offices, then we are thinking about going back to the agrarian age, where we don't have data, we don't have all of